Let me get this up there for you and make it big. There you are. I have live in studio, all the way from Austin, Texas. I have Jennifer Fleck. She is running for Texas House HD 47, and we would love to get her up there, I think. And so today we're going to talk to her. We're going to find out who she really is and if she is the person we want for that job. And so anyway, you guys can see it there, Fleck-Texas.com. I got that up for you. You can see it. And thank you, Dawn. Dawn is retweeting it, so to speak, right now as we speak here. So welcome to Right Side of the Mic with Doc Greene, Jennifer Fleck.
Thank you.
I got to meet you out at a book and author dinner with David Thomas Roberts.
Yes, I just actually posted a review on his book a couple days ago. I finished his book. It's really good. I learned a lot of things that I didn't know and didn't appreciate, and so I highly recommend it.
You mean you learned things they didn't teach you in school?
None of that did I learn in school.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, really. But one of the things that I wanted to get to, Jennifer Fleck, is that Texas is in serious trouble. I mean, we are in serious trouble. We got a lot of problems here in Texas. Did you get a 15% pay raise last year?
I did get a pay raise last year, but I earned it.
Yeah, but
I
was it 15%?
It was a lot.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm glad you did. I didn't get a 15% pay raise last year. But the Texas House somehow decided, man, we've got so much money, we're just going to go nuts, and they're spending like crazy.
Yes.
And I would say they're spending like drunken sailors, but the truth is drunken sailors have more discipline, I think, than the people up in our state house. So first question I'm going to ask you is about the budget of the state of Texas. If you go up there, that's the first number one thing that you have to vote on.
Right.
And in my professional opinion, we could easily cut our budget by 50% if we just got rid of all the stuff that we're spending money on that's not constitutional.
I agree.
So that's one of the things that I would like to see. So if you were to get elected, you would be going up there and wanting to cut the budget.
Yes, I'm for cutting expenses, and they increased expenses this session and unnecessarily, and including SB 10 and 11. So before we can pay less taxes, we have to cut expenses and cut spending. I'm for that.
Well, of course, SB 10 went down in flames, and so they reattached it and sent it back up, and it sailed right through.
It's still there.
But most people don't realize SB 10 was a backdoor red flag law. It allows us to surveil our children starting in pre-K, collect that information, send it to the lefties and the communists in academia, and then they will use that to beat us in the next competition.
Right. It's another bill that's a terrible infringement on parental rights. And it's a terrible bill. It's going to change everything about education, and it's unfortunate. I used to believe that, and because I was told, I used to believe that making law was arduous and complex and hard, and it was for that, and it was that way because that way we don't pass bad law. I bought into that for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Until this session. And when I watched SB 10 and SB 11 get pushed through the way that it did, I'll never believe that again. If leadership wants something to happen, it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. Mm-hmm. That's right. And so while we're talking about that, I catch a lot of flack on this show because even though I'm a Republican, even though I've been a precinct chair, even though I spend most of my spare time working to get Republicans elected, I catch a lot of flack because I will call out bad Republicans. And so I'm going to take this moment and get your input on it, see where you are on these things. But one of the things that I want to talk about is we had a bill to abolish baby killing in Texas.
Right.
We could have quit killing baby Texans. And the governor, I don't know where he was, probably in Europe somewhere. Lieutenant governor, no telling where he was. The next time I seen him, he showed up in Florida. Mm-hmm. We could not stop killing baby Texans in Texas because there was no leadership on this. Your thoughts?
I think it's unfortunate that it was a Republican priority and that it wasn't prioritized. I saw that again and again this session, that things that the people of the citizens of Texas cared about, the House members and the Senate and leadership didn't seem to care about. I think that's just one of many issues that didn't get addressed. And it's unfortunate that Texas isn't leading on this issue, that there are states all over the country that have passed these sorts of bills. And we haven't. And it's unfortunate. It's embarrassing, actually.
Well, it was embarrassing for me, but this is one of those areas where I think if the governor or the lieutenant governor, either one of them, would be interchangeable on this, if they'd have been down there on the House floor saying, we will not sign any legislation out of here unless you pass this bill to stop killing baby Texans, do you think it would have passed?
I think if leadership wants something to pass, it's going to pass.
And I'm liking you better all the time. So we had that issue. We
Not that I'm trying to make enemies. I'm just I'm of the opinion that truths aren't insults and they're neutral, and so it's a truth.
Well, that's it. You're not intending to insult anybody. We're just calling things out that the way they are.
Exactly.
So like that old song says, tell it like it is.
Right.
The other big issue that I had during this last legislative session, like the one before it, we wanted to get some property tax relief. Now, the idea of a property tax, that's straight out of Marx. Karl Marx is the guy that advanced the idea that government owns everything, the people own nothing. And the Republicans have bought into Marxism hook, line, and sinker. And so we had some good bills up there that could have seriously reduced, if not eliminated, property taxes. And of course, it was my position that since we spend $12 billion a year on illegal aliens, if we just got the rest of the wall built, we could bank at least $6 billion in year one, and year two we ought to be able to bank $11 million. Billion. And then we can use that to give property tax relief to Texans. In fact, we could repeal a property tax and replace it with a simple sales tax. In fact, we'd get rid of all 61 taxes in Texas and replace it with one sales tax. 2 sessions in a row, Republican leadership failed to be able to advance that.
Right.
So, once again, if leadership had been there, would it have passed?
I think if leadership wants something to happen, it's going to happen. And it's unfortunate. I mean, I don't know what the competing interests are. I can guess based on my attendance at the Capitol every week this session. I think there are a lot of lobbying groups that have a lot of influence. I think there's a desire to be powerful, possibly, and to hold a position that you're used to having. I don't think that we have a government that's responsive to the citizens of Texas.
Well, that's definitely my feeling. I didn't see anybody that was responsible to the citizens of Texas in this last legislative session. So let me bring this one up. After abortion, after property taxes, I've got to go here. The Lord Jesus Christ said, and I quote, "If you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one." Very simple, and in that context, at that time, which was about 32 AD when he made that statement, a sword was the absolute deadliest, most effective weapon that any soldier or any civilian could own. And so when he made that statement, it was very important. It was also illegal for a Jew to own a sword at that point in time. So when Jesus Christ made that statement, I am of the opinion that he meant it. In fact, I call it the 11th commandment. And this one he cared so much about that he came in person and spoke it instead of writing it on a tablet in stone. It has been a priority now for 6 years. It's been a legislative priority. And I go to the convention every 2 years, and I stay the entire time. So I, like so many other Texans, put tons of my time and treasure into that convention. So it's been a legislative priority now for 6 years, and yet this time Dennis Bonnet said, absolutely not. I'm not about to give you Christians that want to carry weapons any relief whatsoever. I'm going to keep you under my thumb. What are your thoughts on the government controlling our right to exercise the 11th commandment from the Lord Jesus Christ?
Well,
Did you like the way I framed that, by the way?
Yeah. It's a different twist on that question. So when I read about the sword in the Bible, to me it says the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. So I have that feeling toward it, that Jesus, before he was crucified, said, "Have the sword of the Spirit with you, and have my word with you." But he also says, "Sell what you have and go buy a sword." And I think he was implying that we're going to be at war, and he's not going to be here with us in person, which is what the context of the verse is. And so I do think we are at war. I think we're at war, not just in the state, but I feel like, people say Texas is the battleground. Well, I feel like the classroom is the battlefield. And I'm for the Second Amendment. You call it the 11th Amendment. I'm for
it's the Second Amendment, but it's the 11th command.
Right. So I'm for the Second Amendment. I'm for constitutional carry, but I'm mainly for constitutional carry because it was a Republican priority. Mm-hmm. In order for our elected officials who work for us to be a responsive government, they should have filed bills and passed bills to the best of their ability that were compliant with the desires and the votes and the wishes and the hard work of voting Republicans.
Well, that's what I would have liked to have seen. You see, what it comes down to is the House was unable in 2 sessions, 4 years, they have been unable to legalize the Second Amendment in Texas.
And there are other states around the country that have. And again, we should be leading.
I think 20 now.
Yeah.
20 other states have recognized, they have legalized the Second Amendment in 20 other states. Texas, on the other hand, home of the Alamo.
Right. Used to be our own country.
Yeah.
We should be leading.
We should be leading, but we're not leading on anything, Jennifer Fleck.
Nope.
We are chatting with Jennifer Fleck. She is running for HD 47, and she has been so kind as to actually come into the studios so that you guys could look at that bright smile. We're just talking about some concepts here, and I want to know why I, as a Republican, can't get anything that I want passed out of this legislative session. Now, I remember back when Tom Meckler was the chairman of the Republican Party, before James Dickey took it over, and Tom Meckler was giving a speech someplace, and one of the guys stepped up and said, "Well, we've got both houses, we've got the governor, we've got the lieutenant governor, we've got the attorney general. How many Republicans do we have to elect before we can get some conservative legislation passed?"
Yeah, I don't know. I'll tell you, that's why I decided to run, though. When I first started in politics, it was sort of accidental. And when I would go to the Capitol as an activist and lobby on my issue, I can walk into a Democrat's office and they don't even acknowledge me. I think I must have a R on my head or something. I don't know. I don't even get greeted. And when I would walk into a Republican's office, I was, they called given a seat at the table. They interacted with me. And this session, I was proposing 3 different bills. And Republican members would say, "Well, I don't want to file it, but if you can get it, if someone else will file it, I'll support you, I'll co-author it, I'll be behind you." And so
I'm not going to lead.
Yeah, so I worked really hard, really hard.
These must be really crazy bills. Can we talk about what they were? Because they must have been absolutely nuts.
Crazy. So I helped author a bill. It was Senate Bill 784, the committee substitute. There's a House bill companion that's close, 1012. And it was to increase parent transparency when it came to adoption of sex education in schools. That's it. It didn't change the standard. It just increased
Well, that's
parental
kind of
transparency.
radical for a Republican to get behind something like that.
Radical, yeah. And then a second bill in the Texas Criminal Code. If someone is charged with obscenity to a child or seducing a child for sexual contact or conduct, there is an affirmative defense for education, government, science, legislature. And so I proposed a bill that we eliminated affirmative defenses, because if you are obscene with a child or you solicit a child for sex, you should be guilty, no matter who you are.
Well, there's a lot of politicians would have a problem with that one. I can see why that didn't fly.
Seems simple. These are all common sense bills, I think. And then
Well, so far I have no disagreement on any of them. I'd have been there four square. I'll off the thing, carry it down there personally, and make sure it gets on the floor.
Yeah. So then the third bill was Texas, with our tax dollars, pays for online library resources for K through 12 schools. Mm-hmm. And I proposed a bill that if the state, if our tax dollars paid for these resources, that those vendors would filter the content for pornographic images. That's it.
Well, that once again, that's like, to me, that's common sense.
Yeah, that one made it to the floor, but we didn't reach it on the last day because they ran out of time. Anyway, those were my three bills.
Well, because it wasn't a priority.
Right. Those were my three bills. They all sort of have to do with sex. Maybe that's why the men don't want to touch them, don't want to file them, don't want to get involved.
Well,
I don't know.
Quite frankly, there's something to that.
Yeah,
let's face it.
Sure.
It's a bad time to be an old white guy. Or a young white guy, for that matter, since you have your son here.
So I went around and I got them filed by very reputable members. Representative Kane filed one of my bills. Representative Swanson filed one of my bills. Representative Bohack, and then Senator Hughes. And when I circled back around to those same Republican members that said that they would support me, that said that they would support the bill, that said that they would co-author bills, they were absent. Wouldn't return my phone calls, wouldn't meet with me. I had to beg them. And so that was part of the priming of me, God starting to stir my heart that I needed to run.
Bohack last weekend. He came out to one of our voter engagement events. Mm-hmm. Dwayne, shame on you. How come you wouldn't return this nice?
No. Bohack filed one of my bills.
Oh, he actually filed it. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Dwayne, for doing that. We appreciate it.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying. That was the priming, that was the stirring in my heart. And then I went to a rally outside of the Capitol, and the speaker, I was standing on the Capitol steps, and the speaker says, "Isn't it a great day to be in Texas? Except for Austin. Isn't it a great day to be in Texas?" And it was like a trigger moment. I was like, nope, I'm not letting families go. I'm not letting children go. And I'm not letting the city of Austin go. And that was the day I decided to run.
Well, I'm really glad that you decided to do that. Austin, for the most part in Texas, is the last true bastion of communism. We call it Moscow on the Colorado.
We can flip it red. It can be. There are plenty of conservatives in Austin.
Well, what we're working on here is I'm going to check the sound here. Since I just got a message from Joe Dennett, he couldn't get any sound. But, yeah, Joe, it's got to be you because I'm looking in the chat room here and everybody else is happy as a clam. Yeah. Billy White said, yeah, the reason you couldn't get it passed is because they were diddling little girls and it was going to be a problem for them. Right. So,
Listen, I've watched floor debates where the bill is about something that's sexual in nature, and the Democrats are relentless and ruthless when it comes to questioning that Republican member on the floor. I get it. Like, it can get embarrassing, and you might have some things said about you in public and on camera, but we can't stop standing up for what's right just because someone's going to bully us on the floor.
Thank you. You get a bell for that one. I know what that's like because of my stand against the Drag Queen Story Hour, where thanks to the efforts of Tracy Shannon and Tex Christopher, we were able to find out that we had 2 convicted child rapists that were holding these little kids on their lap and reading stories to them.
Right, that's going on in Austin now too.
It's going on in Austin, and we're helping with that too. We're trying to stop it with mass resistance. But because I did that, they attacked my company. I had to take my company webpage down because they attacked it so viciously. If you find the YouTube video of my arrest, there are 25,000 comments on there. I erased the worst of them, but the other 25,000 are still so obscene that the average Christian would take a look at that and just fall out because they couldn't believe what those people were saying. And that's after I took the worst of them out.
Right.
So you're going to be attacked if you do the right thing. And Jennifer Fleck, I appreciate so far what I'm seeing from you. You're strong. And
I think we have to be. I mean, they're not more in number. They're just louder. And
they
so
are loud.
we have to stand up for what's right and be equally loud, or more right, equally loud.
Yeah.
Plus, there's a verse that says, if God's with you, then no one will be against you, or no one can succeed against you. So
That's right. If God is for us,
that's right.
who can be against us?
That's right.
Well, that's what I had to rely upon. So it's cost me family, it's cost me friends, and it's cost me finances. But I've made a decision that, just like you, if I don't stand up for this stuff, I'm going to lose everything that's valuable. Mm-hmm. And this is, of course, why Donald Trump has become president of the United States. Because he looked at everything and said, I've got grandchildren out there. They're going to have nothing if this place goes communist.
Yeah.
And because the first thing that happens when this place goes communist is they're going to take all of the property, all of the land, and once they do that, there's no getting it back.
Well, they're going to take our children. I mean, they're doing it already. It's happening in the classroom already.
Well,
and we're just not paying attention.
That was part of Greg Abbott's initiative, though. That's why the only thing he has led on since he's been governor was universal pre-K. He wanted to start that government indoctrination early. Mm-hmm. So, once again, all you Republicans out there, yes, I'm calling out the governor because he deserves to be called out. And if you would call him out, I wouldn't be having to. So, anyway. So, the three things you brought up, those are all valid, good things. And we agree that we've got to get rid of the property tax. It's a communist Marxist idea, right? Therefore, no Republican should be behind something that's birthed in Marxism or communism.
Right,
yes?
But we have to stop adding spending. We have to stop spending before we can cut taxes.
But they found a whole bunch of new things to spend money on.
Yes.
That's why they increased the budget.
Yes.
So that's why I think we ought to build the wall, stop the illegal immigration problem. Once again, this is an area where the governor could have gone down on the floor and led, or the lieutenant governor could have gone down on the floor and led, and said, until Donald Trump can get the wall built, we are going to put enormous resources on the border. But the big lie was, we put 10,000 troops on the border. That was the big lie. In reality, we had 1,500 people that made it actually to the border. They were using the 10,000 number, but 1,500 people actually made it to the border. And these National Guardsmen down there were equipped with two very important tools: binoculars and a clipboard.
Right.
And the rules of engagement are, if anyone advances on you aggressively, fall back.
Yeah. And there's things
Observe and report. Mall cops.
Yeah.
That's what they did.
There's things that we could have done in the legislature for the border that we didn't do, bills that didn't pass. There's things that we could have done. I mean, I'm an oil and gas attorney, so West Texas is important to me. We have employees out there. There was the Grow Texas bill that didn't pass, should have passed. Taxpayer-funded lobbying should have been prohibited. I mean, there is a lot of good bills that did not pass in a majority Republican House and Senate. There's a problem.
It is a problem. One of the things I want to talk about, though, since you brought that up, we used to have this thing called, we still have it, unfortunately. It's called the Department of Energy. Mm-hmm. The stated goal of the Department of Energy, when it was created by Jimmy Carter, was to get us off of foreign oil dependence. Well, under every president up until Donald John Trump, they failed in that mission. They just couldn't seem to get the job done. And then Donald Trump gets elected, and whammo, 2 years, we're energy independent. We no longer need to import any foreign oil. In fact, the foreign oil that's coming here for refining, most of it's going back to the countries it came from. We don't need it at all.
Right.
So thank God for Texas, because Texas is the #1 energy producer in the world.
Yep.
And I think we can thank Donald Trump for that.
Yeah. But we need to be taking care of those people and those towns and those roads, and not passing SB 10 and 11.
Indeed. Well, I was apoplectic because HB 10, we had done a sufficient job of education, me and my friends and other people around the state, that HB 10 went down in flames.
I watched that.
But we thought, surely these fine Republicans being solid, stalwart constitutionalists, loving God and country, we thought surely they will make sure this thing never comes back. And then bammo, very next bill through.
Yep.
Just stapled it on the bottom.
Every senator voted for those bills, unanimously. I'm starting to be suspicious. If something comes through a House, Senate or House, unanimously, I'm suspicious.
Well, you should be.
Because every issue deserves some debate. And I'm suspicious. And then it comes through the House with only about 5 or 6 members voting against it. And I really appreciate those members because they are responding to us.
For them to do that.
I know. Now they might not get a chair in a committee next session. I know.
Well, Don up there in Collin County, he said he'd never heard of you before. That's why we have her here, Jennifer Fleck. And now you've heard her and you've seen her. Mm-hmm. And Paul Kiefer, one of my very good friends, said, "What a beautiful lady, right moral compass, strong woman." Now, coming from Paul Kiefer.
Is that a compliment?
That's huge. That is huge. So since Paul Kiefer mentioned that, let me ask you this.
Okay.
I personally believe in the Texas State Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, Article 1, Section 2. Have you read those two articles?
I know that Article 1 is the Bill of Rights.
Well, yes. We have
the Texas Constitution.
23 items in our Bill of Rights.
Yeah, no, you'll have to read it. Freedom of speech.
Well,
Maybe,
Article
sorry.
1, Section 1 of the Texas State Constitution. I should have given, I could have given you a heads up on that.
That's okay. You can read it
But
to me.
most people aren't prepared to talk about those. I can tell you that when Dan Patrick was asked about it point blank by one of my friends, it was complete deer in the headlights. And he was lieutenant governor.
Yeah. Okay. Well, when I'm that, I'll know more.
So, Article 1, Section 1 and Article 1, Section 2, I'm going to boil it down simply to this. That if the United States government ever violates the rights of any state in the Union, then Texas must vote on secession. That's Article 1, Section 1, Article 1, Section 2. That's it. Now, the question is, has the United States, has the federal government ever violated the rights of any state in the United States?
Well, I would say yes, just with the income tax.
Well, that alone.
That alone.
And the other question that goes along with that, well, did they do it only one time, or is it a pattern?
It's a pattern.
Therefore, Article 1, Section 1 and Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas State Constitution need to be brought into play, in my opinion. Because it said not just if they violate the rights of Texans, but if they violate the rights of anybody. And when they come out and said, okay, you got to let homosexuals marry, I thought that alone, finally, Texans are going to rise up and say no more.
And we're going to secede.
Yeah, it's a bridge too far. We're done with you guys. The 10th Amendment is still in effect, by the way. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know that during Abraham Lincoln's time, they pretty much took the 10th Amendment down, but let's suppose it's still written in there, and nobody's actually said that we got rid of it. So, therefore, what we could have done at that point is we could have had a vote on secession, but nobody had the guts to do it.
I mean, maybe I'm not young, but maybe I'm too young to realize that that's something that's real, right? I think that there's plenty of us that think that Texas should be its own country, and we sort of think we are sometimes. And I'm okay with giving up some federal funding if we don't abide by whatever their rules are, then we don't get
Well, you
their
know,
funding.
we send way more money to Washington than they send back to Texas.
Right.
Even including the support we get for the military bases that are here, we still send more money to Washington than they send back here.
Yeah.
And of course, all those military bases, a good lot of them, Frank said that's not true anymore.
What's not true?
I need numbers. Hey, Paul Kiefer, you can give me your set of numbers. We'll get Frank's set of numbers, and we will compare them and see what we missed. But
I don't know if I want to secede. I get your argument. I'd rather lead. I
Well,
mean,
I'd
like
rather lead.
that's like me saying, "Well, I'm not going to run. I'm just gonna lead my family, and we're going to do what's right, and we're just going to silo ourselves off, and we're going to have our own little compound, or right." Then we're leaving everybody else that needs to be led, that wants to be led, that wants to be shown the right way and the right thing to do. So I don't know if I'm for secession, but I'm for leading.
Well, I'll accept that as an answer, and that's a good enough answer. Obviously, if we did secede, we still got to look at the last legislature and say, wow, if we were by ourselves, we're in a hell of a mess.
Well, we have to get conservatives to run, and I don't know why more conservatives don't run. I know that it's scary. Sometimes there are days that this feels really scary, and then there are days where this feels really right. And so I would like to lead, or I don't need to lead. I'd like to join a movement that recruits and trains conservatives that want to run, that are interested in running, because what do we do if the only Republican on the ballot is someone who's not for us and is not responsive to our priorities? Then who do we vote for?
Well, I like your idea of leading, and one of the problems that we have with just leading is that we don't really have any leadership. Now, I know that Greg Abbott has already made plans to run for president in 2024, and he's counting on getting a lot of Democrat votes. Therefore, he doesn't want to do anything that might anger the Democrats.
I like Nikki Haley.
So, well, Nikki Haley had some good points. I got to tell you, I wasn't that impressed with her as presidential candidate, but she went up and kicked butts and took names as our ambassador to the United Nations. And I loved the look in her eyes when she was doing some of that stuff. She was enjoying herself.
Yes. Yeah.
And telling the world.
We'll see. That's far off. We'll let Trump do his job for
Well,
a
Donald
bit
Trump's
longer.
got to be reelected. You would agree with me on
I
that.
agree. I think he's gonna win by more than he won the first election.
Now, you missed my opening monologue, but and I'm going to play the whole thing in its entirety later. But Ted Cruz was discussing some of the problems we have with Google. And this leftist liberal professor was up there talking about the fact that Google can move 15 million votes.
It's scary what technology and social media, the power that it has, and I would agree that it has that kind of power.
So that is something that's interesting to me, because I had already calculated it as 6 million illegal votes. But if Google can move 15, Donald Trump does lose. But I'm also inviting everybody to analyze this sort of thing. Donald Trump, the biggest problem he has, this may surprise some of you, the biggest problem Donald Trump has right now is trying to find a venue somewhere in the United States that will hold 100,000 people. Because
for his
that
victory
way,
party?
Yeah, that way he'll only have to leave maybe 10,000 people outside. And the Democrats are having a very difficult time getting 100 people to show up for a rally.
Right.
So I'm just telling you, if Donald Trump loses, put those two things together, and you know there was something seriously wrong. And then you got to decide, well, is the answer to 2024, is the answer to 2020 1776? Because it may be.
Well, and that's why we need to, that's another thing that didn't get addressed this session is election integrity in Texas, and it didn't get addressed. Why not? I don't even know the argument. Like, why aren't we addressing that, especially when we have a majority? And we didn't, and we should have.
Well, let me hit this break, because I'm 6 minutes late for it. And when we come back, we're going to talk about election integrity in Texas. We're talking with Jennifer Fleck, and I'm going to bring up her website again here so you guys can see it. And she is running for the